Struggle to find your file, your script, your query, or your data set, and you feel like your project is just a mess and it's not properly organized, in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to properly organize your work as a data expert. Welcome to my cyberspace. Now, let's get right into it. So one of the first things you want to do when you're working on a project is you need to understand what is the purpose of this project. Let's assume you are working with different departments and they are going to be giving you recurring project. You're working with an organization that has finance, that has sales, that has different departments, and you would work on projects for this department, or you're even working with just one organization and it's a consulting firm and you have to work with different organizations or different sects. One of the things you need to do, you want to organize your file or your project by using folder. It might sound very simple, but just by using folder to organize your project is going to be very helpful for you. Let me show you an example on how to organize your project by folder so that you could have a perfect picture of what I'm trying to say. So first things first is you switch on your laptop and you either go to whatever you want to use, either your desktop or your document folder. So I'm going to be using my document folder. All I just have to click is create new, and I'm just going to call this project. So I call this project. So first of all, one of the things you need to know as a data expert is that not all the time, all the things you do as a data analyst is going to be projects. So you're going to be doing other things outside of projects. I'm sure you should know that by now. So when you work on projects, so one thing you could do, you could either just create like the year, maybe 2025. This is very subjective. Before you get to do this, you want to think about this intuitively and think of how or what would be the best approach for you. Let's say you are working with sales. You try to put up this folder and call it sales, that sales department project. And one of the things you can do, let's assume you're actually also like loading your data directly. Maybe it's not from a SQL server or something. You could also create a folder for data. You could also create another folder for query. So maybe for code, another for documentation. So documentation. So, and you could create like as many folders as you want. And what happens is, let's say you're done with this sales department, you just come in, you could literally just copy and paste all of this and just Control C. We come into another department and say something like accounting department. So we do the same thing, the same structuring, and this is it. So one of the things you really want to even be sure of when you're working on your projects is, first of all, think about it. If you worked on one or two projects, you already noticed a pattern about the project, organize your project by folder. Another thing, one of the things you also want to do is you want to use meaningful names. One of the things you noticed that I did for this was I gave this a name that is quite intuitive. Meaningful name as in when you name your data. For example, this is my file. I want to name this something quite intuitive. I probably will name this as save as. I'll try to go to where this is, right? So I'm looking for projects. So we see project, right? 2025 accounting department. It's a code, maybe it's a documentation. I could say something like inquiry meeting. Maybe you have the inquiry meeting, so it could be 09, that's September. We have 07 dates and 2025. So just by doing all these is going to really make you stand out and you can understand what is really happening. So when I come to accounting department and I come to documentation, I have my file right here, and if it's the code, I just have to give it like the right name. So you don't want to just give any name. For example, it gives you document 1 or it gives you query 1, and you just put up your stuff in one directory that you don't even understand, because a lot of times you would have to go back to your query, have to go back to your documentation to understand what you really did. Another thing that you could also do to properly organize your projects is you could also, organize based off of two. Let me show you an example. Instead of organizing based off of department, I could try to say for 2025, instead of accounting, if there's a tool I probably use regularly, because a lot of times when you're using a tool as a data expert, either SQL, Power BI, you would have to probably replicate similar projects, and it's best for you to just look at what you've done before and understand, oh, this is how I did it prior to this moment, let me go and check it again. You could try to maybe just do it based off of tool. Just create new tool. You can maybe create a folder for tools, and just do something like you create your tool. So you use Power BI. You could call these Power BI projects. You say maybe this is SQL projects. So and so on and so forth. So this doesn't have to be like exactly the way I'm showing you. Just think about it. Do you want to organize by tool? Do you want to organize by the department? And personally, what I do is there are some of my projects that I organize by department and some I organize by the tool, especially if it's a tool that I don't use regularly for my organization. And that's something that you also want to think about. Another thing you also want to do is you want to have like a place where you store like your most recurring like notes or documentation. So what do I mean by this? For example, you met with a stakeholder, and you would always have to do something for like that stakeholder. So you could call this something like help folder. So this help folder can have maybe something like your maybe sample DAX measures. It could have sample query. It could have notes. So what happens is, whatever you want to do something, all you just have to do is just go to this help folder and try to like, maybe it's a password or it's anything. So just put it. I'm not going to say you should store password, that's not going to be safe on your device, but something that you use regularly, such that you're not trying to look for it. So try to have like an help folder that is going to be very helpful for you. One of the things you also want to do is you might also want to use version control, that is Git and GitHub. And my other videos, I'm going to be talking more about how to use Git, how to use GitHub. You could check that right on your screen. And one thing I would really say that will make you stand out as a data analyst, or that will make you properly organize your work, is you want to document everything. When you are done with a meeting, you finish an intake meeting with a stakeholder, or you're trying to work on something for your project, you are trying to analyze your data, you found some things in it, and you really want to really mention it to the stakeholder, or it's something that you think you might need again, or even though you don't think you might need it, if it's something that you are probably sure that you might forget, even things that you think you will still remember, except you've had that muscle memory of doing it regularly, you want to document everything. You want to put up a documentation and write just a note, this is what this is all about for yourself. And the way you document is, you want to document as though somebody would read this without having to ask you a question. So somebody should be able to understand what you wrote without having to reach out to you. And also, one other way to also organize your project is to use project management tools. You could use Notion, you could use Note Plus, you could use Notepad. There's different tools out there. It depends on the one your organization give you access to. It just depends on what works best for you. You could even use Keep, that's Google Notebook. Different notebook out there that will just help you organize your work. That could also even help you mark like to-do list and whatever. And one thing that is very important, this last point is very important: regularly back up and secure your work. You don't want to get to a point where you're working a lot of projects, you've opened a lot of tabs, you've opened a lot of SQL tabs, you've opened a lot of tabs, and you're like, oh, I'm going to save this eventually. Immediately you open up a new script, a new notebook, the first thing you need to do is to save. And I'm going to tell you, you need to save it. It's something that you could learn this the hard way, but I would really recommend you save your files, even though you want to close your file, don't close all. Try to close try to close them one after the other, because you might not know one code that you might need. Even though it's something that you're probably not sure you might need, you could just save it as a name that you're like might not need, and you just come back to it. So remember the point that I mentioned in this video. Make sure you create a folder, organize it based on what works for you, use proper labeling and naming structure so that you can understand. Either you put it by the date, by the project title, you organize it that by tool, you use GitHub. If you know how to use GitHub, make sure you use project management. So if this video was valuable for time, do it to subscribe, like, and follow. Thank you. Ciao.